I was just...
I can say, you know, when I'm in the Philadelphia area and I'm talking to students who may be African American or Latino students, you know, they have their stereotypes or their thoughts as to how they see IUP. And I think it is my job to say to them that, you know, whatever preconceived stereotypes or thoughts you may have about IUP or about the community that surrounds IUP, that you need to be open and willing to learn, because just as you would not want someone to stereotype you,
sure,
you should not be so quickly to stereotype someone else.
Absolutely.
We had the branch campus in Punxsutawney, and you know, that's one of the things you often hear. You may hear from parents or students, oh, well, it's, you know, we have a Ku Klux Klan and there are some racists there and stuff like that, and you hear that, and that is where I feel as though my job is to come in and talk to the parents and students to educate them on that, whether you believe it or not, there are probably more people there that don't have those preconceived thoughts and ideas, but you will never know that unless you know, take the opportunity to get to know them and judge people based on their individual character and integrity that they present to you. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I guess just for the record here, my name is Cameron Smith. I'm interviewing you for the oral history project we got here, and can you introduce yourself, just your name and what you do here?
My name is Shawn Jones, and I am the Associate Director of Admissions, responsible for out-of-state and minority recruiting.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that underway, I guess we'll just start. We're painting in broad strokes here a little bit to start out with. But pretty much just I'm curious about where you grew up, if you can tell me about that.
Originally from New Orleans,
yeah.
which a lot of times when I talk to people, they often ask, well, how did you end up here? I truly believe that it was faith. Grew up in New Orleans, went to Talladega College, which is an HBCU in Alabama. And just so happened my professor, who was a Caucasian gentleman by the name of Dr. Bray, he was a political science he was chairperson of the political science department at Talladega College, and just so happened one day I saw information about Indiana University of Pennsylvania in his office. I saw it, filled out the little information card. Information came back in regards to sports management, which is something that I was very interested in, and just so happened I was able to take the GREs, get the necessary GPA, and got accepted, and decided to come on up here and take that opportunity to, you know, go a little further away from home, and ended up meeting my wife here. And that's pretty much how I have ended up here in Indiana, PA. So.
Yeah, so backtracking a little bit, I guess I'm just kind of curious as to how you wound up in Talladega or at all. Did you go to high school in Alabama, or did you stay in New Orleans?
No, originally from New Orleans, once again. I got a baseball scholarship. I ended up getting a baseball scholarship, and that is what kind of took me away from home. I never wanted to really stay close to home. Many of my friends who did stay close to home, I did not see much success with students staying at home and trying to stay close to home and go to college at the same time. We had the University of New Orleans, which is probably 20 minutes from my house, and there were a couple of HBCUs, Dillard University and Xavier University, and I just did not want to stay close to home. So when given an opportunity to get a scholarship to go and play baseball, and it was, you know, in Alabama, I said, why not? So I just took that opportunity to take advantage of that.
And can you tell me a little bit about family life in New Orleans?
Family life in New Orleans. Grew up with a single mother, but I was raised by my grandmother. My grandmother raised me pretty much throughout since I was probably 7 years old. My grandmother raised me. Life in New Orleans was funny because there was a lot of opportunity to explore. You didn't have as many. You didn't have your social media. You didn't have your all those different activities and things that students get into, or my kids get into nowadays. You kind of had to, you know, create your own fun, create your own excitement. Growing up in New Orleans, it is a city that is built on tourism, built on partying, obviously, but it is a poor community. I think that's something that Hurricane Katrina really exposed to the world, in that you have the perception of going to New Orleans and you're partying, but you never really saw the poverty behind that. So growing up in New Orleans, grew up poor, didn't have a lot of opportunities, but was grateful enough that I had 4 uncles who had 4 different personalities, that while I did not have a father, each one of them kind of provided different, unique experiences of being a father to me. So I think I was pretty grateful for that. And so I don't know.
Absolutely. And what sort of so you said you kind of had to make your own fun, like in, I guess we'll go to high school years at this point, not trying to get
Gotcha.
too far, but like what sort of extracurriculars, either school oriented or otherwise?
In terms of, well, I think for me, I've always played sports, and I think playing sports kept me out of trouble. And I was fortunate enough where I had those mentors, not only just my uncles, but I had mentors like Coach Edward Pierce, or a coach by the name of Gentry Cooper, who were very instrumental in, I guess, kind of providing, once again, that father-like mentor type experience. So for me, I really spent much of my time in New Orleans, playing sports. The one thing I do kind of regret growing up in New Orleans, that I did not take advantage of the opportunities to do different things, whether it be music, dance, or theater. I always joke with one of my colleagues that, she's a music person, and I always kind of make fun of it, being that stereotypical jock. I kind of wish I had experienced those things, but growing up in New Orleans, for me, during the junior high school years, really was focused on sports. I saw many friends who, because of sports, were given the opportunity to go to college. So I think that is something that I kind of more or less relied on. I will say this, though, that the high school that I went to, John McDonald 35 in New Orleans, is a college prep school. So academically, I had the grades to go to college, but I certainly tried to utilize my athletic ability to help pay for college, I will say that.
What kind of sports did you play?
Primarily football and baseball. Like I said, I've done that, played those sports pretty much my whole life.
And you said you went to Talladega College. What specifically drew you there?
It's free money. And once again, I think just being away from home. One of the things that I usually tell kids that I recruit here at IUP is that I think going away also helped me grow up and become more responsible. Because I couldn't rely on my grandmother or relatives to solve issues and problems that I could myself. So, I was happy to have that opportunity to go away to Talladega College. It wasn't HBCU, to be honest with you. I think that at that time that was good for me. I personally, I'm not sure whether or not, going through elementary school, going to junior high, going through college, and primarily being around people of color, I don't know after graduating from high school if I could have made a good adjustment to come straight to IUP, so to speak, being in a predominantly white institution. At the same time, I'm very grateful for the opportunity of being able to be a graduate of IUP in terms of graduate school. And one of the things I share with students that I meet quite often, particularly those of color, I went to Talladega College, which is an HBCU, and I went to...
And what exactly does that mean?
HBU,
yeah.
Historically Black College or University.
Okay.
So I had an opportunity to do that, and I also had the opportunity to come to IUP. And obviously there are 2 totally different universities, but I think both of them have helped me become a better person, a better professional. I think that it has opened up my experiences to be able to work with different people, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. So that's the reason I kind of said earlier about, I think it's great when people can learn from each other. When I was doing my 4 years at Talladega College, I don't know what it was, but just something said, what, the world in which we live in is not always going to be people who look like you. So it's important to have that opportunity to be able to challenge your own stereotypes, your own prejudice that you may have of people. So for me, it was a great experience.
And as far as the demographics of Talladega, was it like, I understand IUP is predominantly white. Mm-hmm. Was it predominantly one ethnicity or the other? Was it
It's primarily African American. Talladega College is located probably about 45 minutes to an hour east of Birmingham. It's a traditional small town in Alabama, and in many ways it could be somewhat similar to Indiana, with the exception at Talladega College. You probably have maybe about 800 students at the time that I went there, whereas obviously IUP you're looking at over 13,000. But there's many similarities in terms of being in a small community in a small town.
And what kind of similarities would those be?
That you have kind of somewhat slow pace. That you have people who work at the college or the university are also in the community, and that the community and the university understands the importance of having a great relationship between the two, because we need each other. I think in some cases, I think some of the people are the same as well. That the people are very kind. They're very willing to give up their time. I would say if there's one big difference is that people down south tend to be a little bit more slow pace, a little bit more, everything's going to be okay, we're going to get it done. That's what I always joke with my wife and that. My wife is from up here, and I talk to my colleagues sometimes, and it's like, everything's fast-paced, everything's fast-paced, everything's fast-paced. Whereas down south, it's more or less, it's okay, it's going to get done. We have a list, but it's going to get done. And if it doesn't get done, we still have tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we could benefit from that sometimes. So you talked a little bit about how you wound up at IUP. Can you tell me a little bit more about that decision?
I know when I got the acceptance letter, when I got home and I got the acceptance letter to IUP, my uncle, who's a pastor, he had said that you never know, you might meet your wife there. And at the time, you're 22 years old. I was like, oh yeah, okay, went in one ear and out the other. But I did not. And something else that I tell kids that I meet, I did not prepare myself beyond the 4 years of Talladega College. Meaning that I didn't do a study abroad, I didn't do an exchange program, I didn't do any of those things that would provide me with a resume to go out and compete for a job. And to be honest with you, I was looking at graduate school as an opportunity to buy a little bit more time, but also once again to grow as an individual. I know that when I first came to Indiana University of Pennsylvania, IUP, I'm coming through the tunnels in Pittsburgh, and I'm driving into town, and I'm going down 376 and turning into 422, and I'm like, man, I don't know about this. And when I get to the campus, I spoke to my mother that evening, and I said, I had never seen so many white folks in my life. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And it was intimidating. But I stuck with it, and I'm so grateful that I did. And I think I made a good decision. There's no doubt in my mind I made a good decision. The funny thing is that obviously I didn't visit IUP before making that decision. So I got accepted, and I kind of just went for it and said, hey, I've already been away to Talladega College, going from New Orleans to Talladega. It's probably like an hour and a half in a plane. So I looked at it from going from New Orleans to pretty much Pittsburgh was like a 3-hour flight. So to me, it was like just another hour and a half. So like I said before, it was a great experience. It's something that I don't regret at all.
Absolutely. And what did you study here?
Sports management. The chairperson at the time was Dr. Millward. He was the chairperson of the sports administration program here at IUP. So he was a great guy.
And how did you come to that decision?
In terms of
choosing that particular focus?
I had always played sports in college and in high school, as I mentioned, and I never looked at the management side of it. So when I was at Talladega College and I was in my advisor's office, Dr. Bray, I saw a tear-off from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And it talked about sports management. And like I said, I never thought about sports management, so it was fill out your name, name, address, phone number, what your interest is, and dropped it in the mail. And the funny thing about it is Dr. Bray, he was a very, 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 very smart guy, but his office was filled with books and stuff all over the place. And for me to happen to just stumble into seeing this one little, probably, 4x6 poster of Indiana University of Pennsylvania and being able to tear it off, I have no doubt in my mind that in the history I am the only student from Talladega College to apply to IUP. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
but I saw that, and that's what led me to at least start the initial interest in coming up here.
And did you live on campus, or did you live off campus?
Now I lived on campus, University Towers.
Yeah.
So I was there when I first came. Interesting. My roommate was a white guy. His name was John. I cannot remember John's last name, but he was from the Philadelphia surrounding area. He was up here for psychology, I believe. Quiet guy, but he was we both finished early. We both finished in about a year and a half. So we both had ideas of getting here, getting done, and getting out of here. And I say for me, fortunately, I had the opportunity to meet my wife, and that kind of kept me here a little bit longer. So.
Yeah, and do you think you experience things differently on campus as opposed to off campus? Or how do you think that altered your experience?
For me, I haven't. I do know of people who may have had some unpleasant experiences being a person of color. Fortunate for me, many individuals, I have a son now. My son he just turned 17 years old. And many of the people that I've met in the community have been just great people to get to know. My son, one of his best friends, his name is Danny Mellon. Him and Danny pretty much have been best friends since they were elementary school. And, I don't think they even look at each other as being black and white. You know what I mean? I think sometimes those are things that we impose upon people. Outside people bring it up. But I've never had any experience or negative experiences as it relates to race here in Indiana. Like I said, many of the parents that I know, or many of the people or friends that I know, are through my kids and in the schools and playing sports. And they've always been welcoming and supportive of me and my son. So.
Do you think it's the outside advantage that brings a lot of negativity? I know that's kind of a broad question, and you can kind of answer that as much or as little as you like. But it seems we're bringing up a lot of the outside influence and kind of how can maybe shape people for better or worse.
I think people inherently have their own stereotypes and prejudice, and I think part of it is up to people to challenge. I think it's up to people to be self-aware of that, and unfortunately, a lot of people are not. A lot of things, I think people tend to have their assumptions about people based off of what they may have seen on TV or what they may have read, but without actually sitting down and talking to someone. Give you a perfect example. I don't do it as much as I used to do it, but I know that at lunchtime, Alex Hecker, Bill Hamilton, who else? Dr. John Benhart. These are three professors, or three individuals who work here at IUP, and all three of them are white. Two of them are professors, and you can find the three of them along with others playing a game of basketball right in Zink Hall. And it's young African American males from Philadelphia, and you have white Caucasian professors playing basketball. And I think that by playing a simple game of basketball, they get an opportunity to learn from each other. And there are others from the community. So it's not just the professors, but there's others in the community that they have the opportunity to meet, and you just learn a lot from each other because you have that interaction. I do firmly believe that when people don't interact is when you have the problems, because you don't get a chance to learn from each other. So.
And I guess kind of changing pace a little bit. And what kind of extracurriculars were you involved in, like in graduate school? I know it's a lot of work. Mostly.
Oh man, graduate school for the year and a half that I was up here. Not much, because at that time I had finished all 4 years of eligibility in terms of playing sports, so that wasn't an option. I did work in the field house with Dr. Frank Condino. Dr. Condino was very supportive of me being here as well. Still friends with Dr. Condino. Every time I see him, he gave me a job at the field house. But really, when I was here, I kind of worked with the NAACP for a little bit, the Black Student League for a little bit. Those were two things that I kind of worked with outside of academics. But that year and a half went by really fast. By meeting my wife, she grew up here in Indiana, so there was some connection with the Chevy Chase Community Center. So I had an opportunity to work there. And I worked there, but at least volunteer sometimes as well. So.
Yeah. Do you like to drink coffee?
Not a coffee drinker.
No?
No.
Oh, man. Even in grad school?
Never been a coffee drinker.
What's your secret?
Well, now as I get a little bit older, it's 5-hour energy.
Yeah.
But as far as just trying to stay active is, I think you got to find something that you have a passion for. For me, if I had to do it all over again, I would have went to school for higher education. Probably wouldn't have went for sports administration. I think having the opportunity to tell students about my experiences of being in college and hopefully sharing with them some of the things that I've been able, strategies that I've been able to use to be successful, I think has helped out a lot.
Sure. What was your favorite place to work when you were here?
Probably was the field house, because it's still, after 4 years of playing, after 4 years of playing sports in college and then coming here for graduate school, you still have that yearning to want to continue to play. So working in the field house is probably was the best job I had. I worked at the field house. I also worked at the co-op at the time. It was a little bit different, but I worked at the co-op at that time as well.
And where did you like to study the most?
What did I study the most? I wouldn't say, I don't think it was the library. I probably would say in Zinc. I probably would say in Zinc Hall, because that's where all of my classes were at for graduate school. So it just made it more easier because the professor was there. I can sit in the classroom, and then it was just quieter there. So for me, it was pretty much Zinc. Yeah.
Now, how did you end up becoming employed at IUP? I know you said you worked at Fieldhouse, other places.
After I graduated from here, I got a job at the Cleveland YMCA. So I worked at the Cleveland YMCA for 2 years. At the time, it was me and my wife recently. At that time, I got married, got the job in Cleveland. I'll probably say it's probably a year after I got married, got the job in Cleveland. And we were there for like 2 years. Wife was pregnant. We wanted to get back close to home, either to New Orleans or here. And just so happened there was a job at the YMCA on 286. I worked there for probably about a year, and then the position here for a minority recruiter came up, and interviewed for the position, and gratefully enough, I was able to be hired. Yes, Trajan. Okay. Yeah, we're keeping the internet with Comcast. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, give me about a couple more minutes. All right. Bye. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Sorry.
No, I understand. Where were we? Okay. I understand you either used to or you still do work with the Promising Scholars program.
Yeah, I still work with them.
Yeah, and can you tell me a little bit about that, how you got involved? And
Promising Scholars, as part of my responsibility as a minority recruiter, we had what's called a Board of Governors Scholarship. And the Board of Governors Scholarships are basically tuition waivers. So in my experience of awarding Board of Governors Scholarships, typically when I first started, what we would do is that we would look at students who had the highest SAT test scores, highest GPA, and pretty much awarded them the scholarship. And we did that for many years. But what I began to realize is that there were students who maybe their SAT wasn't quite as strong, but they were still good students. They had more passion about coming to IUP than someone whose SAT test scores or GPA might be higher. So I figured, you know what, there's a way, we got to figure out a way to gauge not only the students' strength academically, but also try to gauge the students' interest in IUP in their leadership quality. So how can we do that? Well, we can't do that just by looking at a piece of paper. I think it's best to have someone in front of you and be able to exchange those ideas, those thoughts. You know, what are you thinking? Can you articulate why are you interested in IUP? So gradually, I will say fortunately, with Jim Begani, who's no longer here, but he was the VP for Enrollment Management. He supported me. I mean, he basically said, you know, you are the expert in this field, you create it, and let's roll with it. So we were able to create a program that is different than anybody else in the state system. All of the 14 state schools have scholarship money to award. We just tend to award ours a little bit different, meaning that we host a program in Philadelphia and we host a program in Pittsburgh where students have the opportunity to interview for scholarship money. And those students come in, they're interviewed by either a faculty, staff, student, or an alum. The student typically is a senior BOG student that I feel is mature and who embodies someone who have shown growth, you know, professionally, personally, academically. So these students that we choose as seniors, BOG students, they're given the opportunity to interview that incoming freshman. Depending on how well the students do in an interview determines how much scholarship money they will receive, from as little as $2,000 to up until full tuition. And the scholarship is renewable for 4 years. So we had this program where, okay, well, we can interview students, and many people who did it, they thought it was fantastic, they thought it was great. That was only one component of the program. We wanted to say, okay, well, that will give us an opportunity to recruit the kids, and we've seen the kids coming in, and those kids that we were interviewing, we noticed that if we interviewed 50 students, that, you know, over 76%, 75% of them actually matriculated to IUP, compared to before when we were just looking at SAT test scores and GPA. You may get 35 or 40% of those students actually accepting a scholarship and coming. So what happened is that many times with that format, we were left holding scholarships that we couldn't award to students because students had until May 1st, and we really didn't know, okay, we offered X amount of scholarships, only X amount accepted. Okay, we still have that scholarship money to award, and then we're, you know, basically stuck holding the bag. Whereas with this format, we have been put in a position where we got to kind of be a little bit more careful in that, because we know that 76, 77% of the students we interview are going to accept a scholarship and come. We did that for a couple years. Then every year we kind of added on a little bit more. So, you know, after a couple years, we added on the visit component. And part of the reason for adding on the visit component is because, particularly for Philadelphia, we had kids who were being awarded a scholarship, but really did not have either the means or the opportunity to come and visit IUP. And one of the things that we often say to parents and students when we do our program out in Philadelphia is that, you know, we want you, you know, we've awarded you the scholarship because we believe in you academically. But we do not want you to come to IUP only because we awarded you a scholarship. So we have an overnight program where those parents and students who were awarded the scholarship, we bring them to IUP so that parents and students can actually see the university. We have a dinner reception. Those students who are seniors, we recognize them on that night. And those students who are prospective Promising Scholar students, they get to see the freshmen, the sophomores, the juniors, but more importantly, you get to see the seniors as they're getting ready to graduate. And those seniors, we typically would choose one or two seniors to kind of share some words of wisdom to those prospective promising scholar students who potentially may be coming in. And we found that parents, probably more parents than anything, they really appreciate that. So that was the second component. The third component we added was a retention component. So we figured, you know what, it's great with the interviews, it gives us an opportunity to attract the students. The dinner gives us an opportunity to matriculate the students, but once they're here, we still need them to graduate. That's important as well. And I've learned early on when I was here at IUP, SAT test scores don't necessarily always dictate success. So yes, you guys are good academically, that's great. You're familiar with the campus, you've seen the school. The third component is the retention component, where students are given requirements to maintain their scholarship, but we also have put in components in it that we feel as though will help them grow academically and socially. So as a freshman student, you have to maintain a 2.5 GPA. Then you are required to do study hall. Dr. Collin, who has been absolutely fantastic with our kids, we have a mandatory history 196 course that she teaches. And then we have a mentoring component and volunteer as well. And then with the sophomore groups, when a student becomes a sophomore, we have a partnership with the Frederick Douglass Institute with Dr. Watson, and she's come on and she's been fantastic with challenging the students to start to look at, do you want to have a career that will take you to graduate school, or do you want to look at a career that will take you to finding a job once you graduate? She also has a debate team for those students. The debate team, you have research, and then you also have a volunteer component with the Frederick Douglass Institute. The third component, when the student is a junior, we have a partnership with the Career Service Center, which Dr. Manco and her staff really supports and help us with preparing students to do resume writing, cover letter writing. And then when students become a senior, we kind of push them to kind of begin that opportunity of going to job fairs and really figuring out what is it that they want to do after that. And when they become a senior, kind of take those steps further. So.
And what do you think IUP has done to kind of help foster this program and help you?
Oh, there have been many people. I firmly believe. I tell you, there's one thing for me that I've learned in terms of playing sports, and it's something that's always, and it sounds corny as all outdoors, but there is no I in team. This program, if the Promising Scholars program is a successful program, and we believe that it is, and the reason why we said it is because last year's group, 68% of those students graduated with a 3.5 GPA. The group before that, I believe it was 61% that graduated with 3.1 GPA. Anytime I'm in front of the president, if I'm ever in front of any group and we're talking about the Promising Scholarship, it is so important to me that everybody understands that it's not Shawn Jones. And the reason why I illustrate that is because I do believe that as an institution or as a community, we can do great things when we all work together. I'm not a professor of history, but being able to have Dr. Collin come in and do that is fantastic. I have no ego in regards to, well, I just want to do everything, get all of the glory. That, to me, that is so far removed. Dr. Michelle Norwood, she's the person who kind of made that connection with Dr. Collins and helping us move forward with that. Jim Begani and all of his support that he has given us. Dr. Gonzalez in the library. He basically gives us a space where the students can come in and do their study hall. So you have so many different people who play a role in helping this program become successful, and I think it's something that everybody here at the university can be proud of.
Yeah.
So.
I guess the last question I have is really, do you have anything else to add or comment on?
I would say that I've worked here in Indiana for 16 years, and I think that IUP has a lot of great people here. There's a lot of great people in the university, and there's a lot of great people in the community. And while things may not always be as we would like them to be, I'm appreciative of the fact that when things do happen, that we do have a community that can come together and solve issues and problems. And I'm a firm believer that it is by working together as a community that we can move forward and make the experiences of everyone, whether it be students, faculty, whomever, better. So.
And I guess one last thing, I just thought of it, I'm sorry, but I remember you said you were coming through the tunnels of Pittsburgh is when you're coming in, and you come into 422, a bit of a rustic road and such, and you're like, oh my God, look at all these white people, I've never seen this many. I guess what would you say to somebody coming in who's probably thinking the same way? Like, how did that kind of, I don't know, I guess how was your perspective change?
It's funny because sometimes when I talk to my colleagues and I try to give them the perspective of students of color that come here. Now keep in mind, when I came here, I was 22. So I had already had 4 years of college underneath my belt. And once again, if I had came here at 18 and 19, man, the challenges would have been enormous because I don't think the level of maturity would have been there. So I think people have to step back and look at it from that perspective. But it's something that, you know, when I came here, I don't know, it's just something, I think if a student is willing to come here, you know, regardless of what their ethnicity or their background is, I think it's up to us as a university to prepare those students to go out in a global society and be prepared. I think it's great that you learn from the books, and I think that's, you know, fantastic to learn academically, but I think socially, you know, it's important that we interact with each other as well. So.
And I suppose I don't want to lead you on, but it's not just one group or the other. It's I get a sense, not only from you but from a lot of people, that it's both sides, and not necessarily that there are sides, but it's everybody learning from each other.
Oh, definitely about it. I won't say a person's name, but it was I don't know. Someone had asked a question. Well, they made more of a statement. I was talking to a friend of mine and said, okay, so this is how it was a question about students of color, and their statement was these students should be challenged more in high school. And I said to the person I was talking to, I said, that person just made an assumption that students of color who are coming from the inner cities, that they're not challenged, because it was a statement, it wasn't a question. And I said to them, see, for me, I think it would have been a better approach for them to say, hey, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to figure some stuff out, you know, if I'm offending, please let me know. But are students of color challenged when they are in high school? Presented as a way of as being curious and wanting to learn, but they made a blanket statement that put me in a position of saying, okay, well, you made that assumption, so let me give you the other side of it. This is what students of color assume when they come here. So when they make that assumption, then I have to kind of say to them, no, that's not the way you want to look at it. So you're kind of doing the same thing, and you know that doesn't help us. It doesn't help anybody. So.
Well, once again, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it, and
no
we turn this guy off here.